everyone and welcome back to my channel, BethChatsBooks. Now today, as you can tell, I'm in a completely different space. So I just wanted to say that I am sorry I haven't filmed for a while. It's been 2 weeks. According to the good old YouTube. I've just checked before I started filming. I don't know whether people were fully aware. I'd kind of mentioned it a little bit in previous videos, but not extensively, but I was in the process of moving house. So literally last night, I finally got the sale on this house. I've been quite lucky because the house was part of an exchange. So we were allowed to start putting things into the house before we were officially allowed to move in. So that's why it kind of looks semi-habitable, considering I've only slept one night last night in this room. But as you can tell, there's a few like boxes behind me. It's all kind of going on. So I didn't really know where to set up and film in this room yet. This seems to be a good position because this is facing the window and you can kind of see a bit of space, but it's a bit difficult because my bookshelf is now here and potentially I might try and get like a little book chair that I could kind of seat there, and then you could have the books in the background. But I've got a big wardrobe here. I'm not going to do a like kind of tutorial of where I'm living. This is my bed at the moment that I'm lying on, but I'm also in the new year going to be room sharing this room with my sister, who's coming back from Canada in January. So I don't know if you can see behind me, but there's a second bed. So it's all been a bit crazy. So I haven't had any chance to film because I've been bringing boxes of stuff to this house, including my iPad, which I film on. So it was just dumped here for a bit of time. So I didn't really have a chance to film at all. And then I was going to do a tag video, which I think I will do later on in this week. But now we are on the 19th, we're basically nearly touching Christmas, so it's just been hectic. So I thought I might catch you up on where I've been at with my reading. If you hear anything, you might hear the cat. It's quite funny. We've moved from a bungalow to a house with stairs, and I left him downstairs and I thought I'll set up and film because nobody's in the house right now, because I'm moving into this house with my brother, my stepbrother and my dad and my stepmom. So she's just gone out to do a few errands because she's retired, and my dad's at work, everyone's at work, it's my day off. And I thought, oh, I'll leave him downstairs, you know, he's old now, he's not been able to deal with stairs. And I started putting this ready to film and he's here. He's just right in the corner down here chilling. So, you know, there's new life in the cat yet. Also, for any cat lovers, he's transitioned quite well to this new house. I know we've only been here a day, but he's got his own setup in the porch with heating and a bed. And he's pretty chilled out. I thought he was going to get really stressed. He did cry in the car journey over, but luckily we haven't moved that far away from where we originally lived, so the car journey wasn't too difficult for him. But anyway, that's a bit of waffle. Let's just get into where I'm at. So when I last left you, I was kind of doing a brief catch-up. So since then, I've read Career of Evil by Robert Galbraith. I'm not going to go too much into it, but I gave it between a 4.5 and a 5 stars, which is similar to what I gave A Cuckoo's Calling or The Cuckoo's Calling. I always forget whether it's A or the very first one in the Robert Galbraith series. I enjoyed it just as much as the first one. I think this story is really interesting, this third one, because it really fleshes out the relationship between Robin and Cormoran, and also Robin's relationship with Matthew, I believe. Yeah, Matthew, her fiance, gets a little bit more complicated. So we kind of see a more human side out of the two of them. Robin progresses a lot more in terms of her role in Cormoran's kind of job assignments that he's given. And the story was a lot more gripping. I think it was less gruesome than Silkworm. Don't get me wrong, there is quite some gruesome murders described, and in the book the murderer, a couple of times we get to read from his perspective committing the crime. So it is a bit gritty, but it's very strange to say so, but J.K. Rowling has kind of made a comfy crime style out of this series that I really enjoy. I wouldn't say they're like cosy crimes, like I know that the British Library has the kind of crime classics that they sell at Waterstones and things. I mean, it's definitely not cosy. Some of these crimes are quite gruesome, but I've kind of fallen in love with the characters of Cormoran and Robin, and I really kind of root for them, and it gives me this warm, happy feeling. And considering the books are nearly 600 pages a pop, I seem to race through them really enjoy the reading experience. I'm totally immersed and engrossed, so I would definitely recommend this series for people who like crime, who kind of want to start a new series. I'm always asking for crime recommendations, and particularly at the moment crime series, is because they seem to have quite a good payoff. I know that my boyfriend really likes the Bosch series. Is it James Connolly? I think it's James Connolly who does Bosch series, and he's rereading them on kind of audio, on his phone, not on audiobook, on his, what do you call that? E-reader, but on his phone. My brain's all kind of Christmas mush at the moment. And I know that Jen Campbell has raved about Nikki French's. It's a crime thriller, and they're kind of all based on days of the week, so I think it's Monday through to Saturday, or is it Sunday through to Saturday? I can't remember off the top of my head, but that's one that she recommends, and that Lauren from Lauren in the Books has just started reading. So I love recommendations on new crime and crime series, so if anybody's got any that they would really rave about, pop it down below. But yeah, I'm definitely going to continue with this series. Waffle over, let's move on. So then the next one I read was The Underground Railroad by Colson Whitehead. Now this one, I was very unsure of how I would feel about that particular book, because my mum had said that she really didn't enjoy it. Now it reminded me of Ruby by Cynthia Bond and books like The Colour Purple. It basically is the story of slavery in America and African American slavery. So it does start off on a plantation, and then we do kind of go on this journey with two of the characters who decide to escape the plantation. So it's very hard hitting and it's very heartbreaking and poignant. But I actually quite like those narratives. I've briefly mentioned before in other videos, I studied about African American history, particularly civil rights in the 60s, and I feel really strongly that it's a powerful and a very dark part of history, but a very important part of history to learn. Although I'm not American, I'm British. It's not like our history is any nicer in terms of African immigrants and immigrants from the Caribbean and things like that. So it's very beautiful actually. I was quite surprised because a lot of people have been quite split down the middle about this book, and I thought it kind of resonated with very similar books of its style. I preferred this much more to Ruby by Cynthia Bond. I decided to give it 4/4.5 out of 5 stars because it was beautifully written, and I don't think any of the words in the story was wasted. It connected the South and the North in an interesting way. I was really gripped by the characters. There was a lot of heartbreak and a lot of characters that we lost along the way, but even though the book wasn't extensively lengthy, we connected enough with the characters that we felt the loss significantly as a reader, which I think is very important. And it was beautifully written, and I really would recommend it, and I think I will want to carry on reading more of his novels. I know he's got The Nickel Boys out, and have seen it in my library, so I definitely would recommend him. It's one I very much enjoyed. And then the next one I want to talk about is My Year of Rest and Relaxation by Atesha Moshfegh. I always say that wrong, it just jars in my mouth, so sorry. You know her name, you know her. This is a very famous current book, I would say. I think a lot of booktubers and a lot of readers really have either wanted to read this or have read this. It's kind of polarising in its topic because it's about a woman in her 20s, New York City, very wealthy. She's an orphan. Her parents died within a kind of a year of each other when she was at college. And she's got this inheritance that she wants to spend on basically having a year of rest and relaxation. And that's where she's going to manage to she thinks she's bluffing to a psychiatrist that she's got insomnia to give her medication that will literally just have her zone out. And she wants to do that for a year. She just wants to hide away in her apartment and not face the world. She has a very interesting relationship with her best friend, Reva, and they have this really strange relationship where Reva's dependent on the main protagonist. We never know the name of the girl, the main protagonist in this novel. It's not really stated, but Reva's quite close to her, but she's very not very warm and friendly to her friend. You kind of question why they're friends and their relationship all the way through. So the plot actually is a little bit strange. I know a lot of people would question why would you want to read a novel about a pretentious 20-odd-year-old who just wants to intoxicate herself with drugs and just call it a year of rest and relaxation when there's people all over the world who are struggling to make ends meet. And it is ludicrous as a premise when you're reading it. It does feel very strange, but Atesha writes in such a way that you're gripped by what she's writing. I fully bought into the world, which is very strange, because when you try and describe it as a concept to people, I know a lot of people at work were asking me what it was about, and it was very strange to try and articulate that to them, what it was about, because they're not particularly readers at my work either. But I actually raced through it. I don't think I enjoyed it quite as much as Eileen. It's been bugging me the whole time since I finished it, whether they're on a par or not. They're basically on a par in my mind, but I think Eileen's slightly higher because it did have a more tangible plot. And I did kind of finish this book and say, why did I love it so much? And I can't really give you a fathomable answer for that. So when I first finished reading it, it was more sitting at a 3.5. But now I would say it's more a 4. But I think I couldn't give it higher than that because it's not really life-changing or poignant, or it doesn't really do anything, whereas a lot of literature I've recently been reading really has had an intent, either political or social, about race and culture. This one really doesn't. It's just more of a guilty pleasure read. And the last one I want to talk briefly about is Do Not Say We Have Nothing by Madeleine Tien. Now, I finished this last night. It has took me quite a while. I tried reading about 70 pages of it and put it down. Didn't read it for 3 days, kind of got in a bit of a reading slump, and then came back to it and managed to read it. Now, it's beautiful. I've decided to give it 4 out of 5 stars because it goes through 3 generations of two Chinese families and how they kind of meet each other in the middle, and it ends up with the 3rd generation kind of living in Canada. It goes through the reign of Chairman Mao, and it goes through the Tiananmen Square demonstrations and what happened there. And I didn't know so much about Chinese history, so this was really important for me. It was very educational. This book is very heartbreaking. The way Madeleine Tien writes is very lyrical. Everything is very profound and things that you want to mull over. That in some ways hindered the reading experience for me because I felt like I was mugging through really thick passages about literature is discussed at length here, music, particularly kind of Russian and European music and its influence in China. Maths is used here a lot. The last generation, Aiming and Marie, both are kind of mathematicians, and they see the world through kind of structural sequences. And then there's a lot of musings about that. There's this book of records in the novel, which is a kind of a folk story that's been passed down through the generations. They want to preserve it, even when the government is trying to burn literature and music and ban things and stop creative thought and all these other things. So it was really, really important, but it did prove very difficult for me to just enjoy the story. And I think because of the way it was written so beautifully that it didn't have that page-turning quality for me. I did have to kind of really concentrate. Some books that I read, I can just literally switch on in the hour of my work and my work break and just read it. And this one I had to keep rereading passages, and considering it is 463 pages, I can't ultimately say it was a pleasurable experience. It was really educational and important, and I'm really glad I read it, but I didn't love my reading experience of it, and I think that's just one of those things. Well, that's my waffle over. That's already 15 minutes of waffle. Now briefly, I'm just going to go through some of the books. I've gone a bit crazy with the library recently, and I'm just going to show you what I've taken out. So I don't know if I've mentioned these before, but I feel like I have, so I'm not going to rest too much on these 2 books. That is, I've still got The Death of Mrs. Westaway by Ruth Ware, and I've still got Skin Deep by Liz Nugent. Now, I believe these 2 I have shown you guys in kind of a library haul. It was the same library haul in which I took out Do Not Say We Have Nothing and My Year of Rest of Relaxation, The Underground Railroad and Career of Evil. So these are 2 that are still ongoing. This is a thriller about a lady who inherits a house under false pretenses. She kind of accepts the deal of this house even though she knows it's nothing to do with her lineage. This house is not hers, she knows that. And then there are some secrets when she gets there. And this one has kind of been buzzing up as a really good thriller. I know a lot of people have really enjoyed this. I've realised it just says the #1 best-selling author of Lying in Wait, and I've been listening to the back catalogue of Richard and Judy's book club, because I always love a good book podcast, especially they're quite bite-sized in between walking to work and things like that. And I did listen to the podcast about lying in wait, and I thought that one was really interesting, but I know this one's had really rave reviews. It says it's based in the French Riviera, a socialite, and then something in her past comes and shocks her, so can't wait to read that. But there's them two, and then I have Claire Fuller's Swimming Lessons. Now, I recently read, what is the other Claire Fuller book? Oh, Bitter Orange, and that was quite enjoyable. I really liked her writing style, but it didn't have that wow factor for me, but it was quite a good constructed thriller. But I know that this one came before, and a lot of people have raved about this a little bit more than the other one. So this one says it follows Flora's mother Ingrid's disappearance. She vanished from a Dorset beach. Everyone, Flora's sister and father, believe Ingrid is long dead, except Flora, she doesn't. So when she hears that her father has had an accident, insisting that he saw his wife, Flora rushes home. So that sounds quite interesting, of kind of what's happened to her mother and why she's been away all this time. That sounds quite interesting. And also, I picked it up as well because I've been meaning to every time I go to the library, and I thought, no, there's more important books I want. But considering this is under 300 pages, I thought this might be a good palette cleansing one. So there's that one. And then the next one I took out was An Orchestra of Minorities by Chigozie Ioma. I really should have researched that beforehand. Oops. But anyway, this one was all over BookTube for a while. It's fairly recent. I think it is this year's. So I've kept seeing this at my library. I think they've got 3 or 4 copies of this hardback. And it was one that I wanted to get to because a lot of people said that they read this and really enjoyed it when it was in, I think it was in the long list. So I don't actually know that much about it. I think this is going to be another one that deals with a lot of kind of race and culture. So yeah, it says it's set in Nigeria. A young poultry farmer sees a woman attempting to jump to her death from a highway bridge. Horrified by her recklessness, Shinoso joins her on the roadside and hurls 2 of his most prized chickens into the water below to demonstrate the severity of the fall. The woman is moved by his sacrifice. Okay, so it seems like it's going to be an interesting story set in Nigeria, which is really interesting because I read My Sister the Serial Killer, and that was set in Nigeria, and I was really interested in that landscape, so it'll be interesting to read more of that kind of storyline. And let's have a little look. So it says it's around 500 pages, but what's quite refreshing when I've been opening it is the text, and the font looks quite big and quite well spaced out, so I think that if I get into this, it hopefully will have a page turning quality to it. So there's that one. And then I've picked up The Good People by Hannah Kent. This is another one a bit like Swimming Lessons, where I've kept seeing it at the library and I've read another of her books and I thought I'll get to it, and then I thought no, this is the time to get to it. Also, I picked this one up and Swimming Lessons and a few others on the premise that I double checked there was another copy, because I knew that I'll be renewing these about 3 or 4 times at the moment because I had a bit of a slump. So I wanted to make sure that no one's going to take it off me. So also, I was so surprised when I got to the library. I don't know if you can see here, but it's got those kind of deckled edges, those really nice flayed edges there, so it feels really nice. So The Good People by Hannah Kent. I have read Burial Rites by Hannah Kent and I really enjoyed that. That was kind of set in Iceland with the last, I believe it was loosely based on the very last hanging that was done there, and about how she was accused of killing her family, and we kind of got from her point of view, and I found that quite gripping. So I thought I'd give this one a go. I know this is set in Ireland though, isn't it, this one? Yeah, it says Count Kerry Island, 1825. Nora, bereft after the sudden death of her beloved husband, finds herself alone and caring for her young grandson, Mikkel. He cannot speak and cannot walk. Nora's desperate to know what's wrong, what happened to this healthy boy. And it seems like it's going to go through some different characters and different generational story bringing togethering kind of novel. You know the type, where it goes through different generations and all kind of comes together in the end. And also this one feels like it's not too lengthy. Yeah, it's about 380 pages, but it looks again like the font's going to be quite good for me, and I think hardbacks kind of always look a bit bigger, don't they, anyway? So there's that one. And then this next one is Lethal White. This is the final book in the Robert Galbraith series. I've harboured on about the Robert Galbraith series enough, so I won't go into too much detail. When Billy comes to Cormoran's office to help investigate a crime that he thinks he witnesses a child, strikes left unsettled, yada yada yada, we find out what happens with Robin and Matthew and Cormoran. So I'll tell you a lot about this one. I finished it. My mum kind of bummed me out a little bit the other day because I said, oh, I'm getting to the last one, I'm really excited, and she was like, oh yeah, this one's really disappointing compared to the third one. I was like, oh, thanks mum. So, but this one is a lot chunkier. It just feels chunkier. Let's have a little look. Yeah, so it says it's over 600 pages, whereas the others I think were just under. So hopefully we'll have a satisfying ending. I pray. So there's that one. And then the next one is There by Tommy Orange. I saw that Jasmine over at Jasmine's Reads had reviewed this as a literary fiction recommendation. I didn't actually get to find out what the book was about, but I saw she recommended it. I saw that this had been shortlisted for a prize somewhere along the line. I have all this written down. I have loads of prize winners and all the man bookers in a notebook somewhere, but as I've barely unpacked, just pray that I know that it was from some prize. Maybe it was a man booker. Maybe. Anyway, so it says Jackie Redfeather and her sister Opal grew up together, relying on each other during their unsettled childhood. Adults, they were driven apart. And then there's some other characters, so I feel like it says here, yeah, There is a multi-generational, relentlessly paced story about violence and recovery, hope and loss, identity and power. So it seems like this one hopefully will have that page-turning quality. I kind of believe that a lot of my opinions on books overlap a lot with Jasmine's, so if she really liked this, then hopefully I will. And also, I also don't think this is too badly paged. Yeah, it looks like this is under 300, so I'll give this a good go. And then the very last one I want to talk about is Kate Atkinson's Life After Life. Now, I picked this up because I've heard a lot of people talking about it. Again, it's kind of had a resurgence. I know that this is not a very new novel, but this is the very first one, isn't it? Life After Life, and then it's A God in Ruins, I believe, that kind of is loosely based on the same story. And I know a lot of people really enjoyed it. My mum has really enjoyed it, and I also want to read transcription from her, but I thought this is a good place to start. So I know loosely that it's based on the premise that this person keeps repeating their death, I believe. Yeah, what if there were second chances and third chances, an infinite number of chances to live your life? Ursula Todd, as she lives through the turbulent events of the last century again and again. So I'm really interested to see how much I like it, because the only other one that I loosely read that kind of followed different lives was I'll insert it kind of here when I find out what it is, but and they kind of went through his lives multiple times, and I found it really, really boring. So I don't know if I like that premise of repeating a life, but everybody says this is fantastic, so I'm going to give it a go, you know? So finally I'm finished, that's everything. Thank you so much if you've still been watching this till the end. I'm probably going to do another tag video before Christmas, but I'll just wish you all happy Christmas now, just in case you don't get round to watching everything. So have a fantastic Christmas and a very happy new year to you all. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll be back very soon with a brand new video. Bye now.